Alright, welcome back. We're gonna continue learning how to play Going Medieval. In our last episode, we just got the game started because there's so many different options in the menu. And now, we're actually gonna play the game and at least build our first house. Okay? So, here we go. As soon as my game loads, I hit pause, right? Because there's a lot of things going on that we need to take care of pretty quickly. So you see your settlers and you see all the resources that they came preloaded with. So we've got some weapons, we've got a healing kit, we've got some books, we've got some food, some resources. So right off the bat, I'm gonna go to manage and I'm gonna identify who my hunter is, who my marksman is, because they'll need a ranged weapon, bow and arrow, crossbow, something of that nature. So to do that, I can click manage and then I can come over here and hover my mouse over each settler and it'll give me a little snapshot of their skill set. So we're looking for marksman and it looks like this settler has a passion for it and has a level 12. So we've got two different ranged weapons. This is a short bow and this is the long bow. In order to use the long bow, they have to have a skill of at least 10, which is handy because he's at a 12. So we're going to go ahead and have him equip that. And then our next best marksman, not a big difference, is Melody, and so we'll have her equip the short bow. I actually prefer to have more ranged weapon users. It's just easier when you're under attack. And that means our last settler can have either the short sword or the spear. So if you hover over it, it'll actually give you the hit points and the damage information. So we're going to go ahead and give him the sword. There we go. Alright. And before I unpause, I am going to kind of center my camera and just take a look around and see what my map looks like. Because I'm about to start building an entire city. And I want to make sure I'm building in a good place. So as I'm going through here, I can see already there's some resources. There's some berries, there's some coal right here, mushrooms, hay. We've got a fair amount of trees, which is good. We've got some coal, some clay over here, some limestone. This actually looks like a pretty good location. Okay, so now when I start my first building, I want it to be near them, but I also want it to be in a good location. But I'm actually okay with where they are. I think it's a good place we can expand from. And we've got a lot of stuff, a lot of resources nearby. So we will zoom in a bit. And I'm going to hide these trees. So if we come over here, there's different tools. This one will hide the roof elements so you can see inside the buildings. This one will hide the treetops. This one will show you an overlay of the rooms and what types of rooms they are. It's a fast way to find a room or help you figure out what you need to put in a room to give it a specific title. Zones, item indicators, group resources, and reset camera, which just does that. So here we go. This early in the game, they don't need anything fancy, and what you want to keep in mind is don't get in a hurry, right? This is a very relaxing, slow-paced game, And if you get in a hurry, you will just get frustrated. So let's open up our base. Now this is where all the building materials are. This one is production, so anything that you use to make other things will show up in here. Here's your furniture. You start out with just what you have enough research for, right? Furniture the same way. You start very basic, very simple, and as you research more, you can get more advanced furniture. Leisure, this is going to be important soon. This is where you'll find the religious stuff and games that they can play. And then miscellaneous is just what it sounds like. So you've got some decorations and graves and fences and merchant stalls and things. Any warfare, defense types of building options will be in here. And then this we'll talk about in just a second. These are your zones. Okay? So let's start our house. And this, like I said, this early in the game, we don't need anything particularly fancy. So I am going to put this, I think, a little closer to this clay. Because I like this clay. I'll probably build a kitchen here. We'll see what happens. So we're just going to give them a 10 by 5 floor. Okay? And at the same time, we're going to come in here to this zone. Now, they won't move things or store things unless they have a designated place to put them. And that's what these are. So you've got one just for warfare, you've got one for dumping. Like, this is their trash, right? So we're going to put that. They don't like to be around it because it smells bad. That makes sense. If you click on it, you can see what's allowed or not allowed in here. So I'm actually going to take animals out because I like to have those closer to where I can cook them. But then waste consists of bones, rotten meat, vegetable rot, and ashes. Okay, so we'll put that one there, and then closer to where they live, there are some things that will last longer indoors and some things that'll be fine outside for a while. Eventually, everything will rot. So we're just going to give them a little default stockpile, and then we're going to click on it, and here's where we'll talk about what works best where. So clothing, that's like winter clothes, summer clothes, shackles, which I've literally never used, hats, those last longer indoors, which makes sense. That's why we have closets. Carcasses. So animal carcasses, deer, rabbit, wolf, those last better inside. Human carcasses, we're going to kind of save that conversation for later. We're just going to uncheck it because they'll rot if you just leave them laying on the ground. Food is better inside. Seeds, warfare. We don't want waste over here. Books last longer inside, medicine lasts longer inside, and structures last longer inside. If I click on material, we can really slice this thin, okay? I prefer salt to be indoors. You don't have to. I think it does okay outside. And then manufactured things. So vinegar definitely lasts longer indoors, as does ice. Mechanical components, tallow, and beeswax. Okay? Now, I'm going to unpause. Now that I've unpaused, I will make it so they can actually manipulate their environment. So you notice these little hands? That means the settlers can't touch this item. So in order to let them touch it, you have to click allow. and then you can highlight it, or you can click on it and say allow. That's useful because they're going to be hauling stuff in and out, and if it's something really far away or something that I don't need immediately, it wastes time and energy for them to go and collect it. Or if it's something like these sticks and they're starting to rot, which they're not yet, but if they are, I don't want them to go pick up rotten sticks that are just going to fall apart in 2 turns, you know? So we can see they've started to build the floor. Now the other really basic things that a house needs, they'll need a door, and I like to put at least 1 on each side so they have some flow through. You don't have to have windows, but it makes it better in the summer when it gets hot. And then we need walls. So like I said, this is, I think, one of the things that makes this particular game different from a lot of city builder games is the ability to, the size and shape of the building are kind of up to you within some limitations. And as you become more advanced in research, as you start to get more resources into your stockpiles, the types of material will also change. So right now we've got wood, but eventually we'll have limestone, we'll have clay, we'll have limestone blocks and clay bricks and so on. Okay, now we're going to put a roof on this. You can rotate, if you want to, the direction of objects. We'll give them some time to work on the roof. Over here you will notice little messages and flags. Our first one is going to be that there's not enough beds. So, to build beds, we're going to hide the roof and turn that off because it's distracting. And we're going to kind of scroll down just because it makes it easier. So we'll go to furniture, and right now all we have to sleep on is a hay sleeping spot, and we have 3 settlers, so we're going to need 3 beds. I actually like to build a spare because new settlers will be joining us. Any building, they're going to need a heat source. You don't have to leave it on all year, but especially in winter, they will die if they get too cold. So we're going to put some of these clay heaters in here. So settlers are idle, that means they don't have enough to do. So let's give them some more stuff to do while we're waiting. We're definitely going to need some more wood. So we're just going to scan through these trees. And I prefer, you don't have to, but I prefer to just use ones that are dead, like this thing, or trees that are mature. So you'll notice that there's like a percentage over here. It's like this tree is 66% mature. That means it's still growing. And they've tried to make it, oh, this one's 91, so we'll go ahead and chop that guy now. They've tried to make it sort of realistic in that the age of trees and plants and animals and people kind of correlate to a semblance of real life, okay? So like trees start out as saplings, then you can plant them, and then they're young, and then they become mature, and then they die. So I'm also going to go ahead and select some resources here for them to harvest. That way they can have food. And some of this straw here for building materials and hats. Yeah, they've got the interior of our little shared bedroom is complete. So we're going to go ahead and add another default stockpile, and we're going to make this one pretty good size, right? This, I'm just going to hit clear everything. This is where we're going to store all that indoor stuff that we didn't store on the outdoor stockpile. So, food, apparel, animal carcasses, under material, salt, vinegar, ice, mechanical components, tallow and beeswax, all of our textiles, that's stuff you make clothes out of, like linen, wool, leather, seeds, warfare, weapons and armor, books, medicine, and structures. There we go. Now you might have to give them a little nudge to start moving things, and that's easy to do. You just click on the settler you want to do the work, and then you right click on the item you want them to move and tell them to move. You can do the same thing for any task. So if I wanted him to come over here and cut this or harvest it, I could just tell him to do it. Okay? And so now that we've built our first house, the other really important item is a place to prepare food. Absolutely critical, because you don't want people to starve. So you start out with just a campfire. I just throw it outside when I'm first beginning because I want to build a nicer kitchen later on. And you can always move it indoors. Since this is a raid scenario, one of the first things that they'll try to attack is any production items that are outdoors. Just a helpful tip. He is going to build our campfire. And now, with any production item, as soon as it's done being built, you want to click on it because they're not going to produce anything in there until you tell them to. So this makes meals. As you get more research and develop your community more, you'll actually start to see more items that they can create. So we're not going to do amount. You can tell them to make a specific amount, keep cooking forever, or keep going until you have a certain amount. So with 3 settlers, and they usually eat like twice a day, that would be 6, but I always like to have 1 spare settler's worth of food, so that means 8. So now Melody is going to start cooking, and she'll start making some stew. There we go. And that is how you get started. We built our first house, and we've got a campfire. So stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll show you what happens next.